we are already receiving the responses back from the bot. And if you didn't notice, message.json is going to be of its own type, of course, but it's pretty much going to be an array of activities. So what I want to do is get that array of activities and get it over to the main VM. But for that, of course, first I have to deserialize this JSON. So what I will do is create a simple class that is going to be the bot's response. And all it's going to have is a string property that is going to be called watermark. So you may have noticed that that JSON is going to contain a watermark, and it is also going to contain a list of activities. So I will simply have this activities property as well. And so I will be able to deserialize this JSON. So let me just get a bot's response to simply deserialize that object as bot's response. What object? Of course, the message JSON. And so bot's response is already going to contain both the watermark that we're really not going to be using and the list of activities. And it is going to be that list of activities, the one that I get, the one that I want to send over to the main VM, which eventually is going to contain an observable collection that is eventually going to be populating the main page. Now, to get this over to the main VM, I of course could do many different things. What I want to do is set an event. So whenever I get a response from the bot, I fire an event to which, of course, the main VM would have to subscribe. So the event is actually going to contain inside not the entire bot's response maybe, but at least the array of activities. So because a normal event, of course, cannot contain that, I will have to create my own event arguments. So I will define a new class that is going to be my bot response event args class that is going to inherit from event args. So this is going to be the type that we need when we want to send additional arguments to an event. And all it is going to have, let's say that it doesn't require the watermark, so instead of passing a bot's response, it is going to have simply an array of activity. And so with this class, that means that the bot service helper class can contain an event. So let me define a public event handler that is going to be of type bot response event args. And let's just call this message received. And so all I will have to do is when I receive these messages, when I already have this bot's response, is fire this event. So actually let me create the arguments first. I am going to create the arguments as a new bot response event args, and the arguments to the activities is simply going to receive the bot's response activities. So of course we already have the activities in the bot's response. I'm simply assigning it to a new bot response event args, which means that all we have to do now is the message received, just invoke this event, and I'm simply going to set this as the sender and of course the arguments, well, as the arguments, and the arguments are already going to contain the activities. So all we have to do now is in the main VM, once I have created the bot helper over here in the constructor, I am going to subscribe to its message received event. And so I will create a new method for when the message has been received. And in here, the arguments are already going to contain the activities, which means that in the activities, I already have all of the messages that have been received. So I can have an observable collection in here that is eventually going to be binding over to my main page. But my observable collection is not simply going to be an observable collection of activities. I do want to make a couple of evaluations in here. For example, if the channel accounts ID is the user one that we are setting for the current user, then I really don't want that particular activity to be added. I would want to add it to that observable collection when I send the activity with this message, not when I receive it from the bot. Of course, there are many different things that I could try in here, But what I want to do is have an observable collection of a different type, and I'm going to be adding to that observable collection both when I send an activity with this message and when I receive the messages from the bot. And also, this type is not going to be again an observable collection of activities, because I don't really care about the type or the channel account. I do care about the text, and I do care about knowing whether that is a message that I am sending myself or the user, or that is being received from the bot. So what I will do is create another class. So this class is going to be my chat message class. And I will have an ID just in case I really need that. That is going to be string. But the important thing in here is that I'm going to have a text that is going to be the actual message. And I also want to have a boolean letting me know if the message is incoming. So if this is incoming, it is coming from the bot, of course, and if this is not, it is coming from the current user. This property is the one that will eventually allow me to know whether I need to set the chat's bubble to the right, which is not incoming, or to the left, which is incoming. So I will have an array, an observable collection of chat message here in the main VM. So let me go ahead and define that observable collection of chat message that is going to be messages. And of course, from the constructor, let me right away initialize messages to a new observable collection. So immediately, first of all, before sending the activity, I can add a brand new chat message that is going to have a text that is equal to the message that I'm eventually going to be sending. And also it's going to contain is incoming as false. And of course, I also need to add the messages that are going to be receiving from the bot, but I don't want to add all of them. I only want to add those that are actually coming from the bot. So you notice how we are going to actually be receiving those that we sent ourselves. So what I want to do is first iterate through each of the messages. So I will get each and every one of the activities in the activities array or list that is coming from the arguments, and evaluate if the activities from ID is different than user 1, which is the ID that we set is the ID of the user when we send this message. So if and only if this is different than user ID, do I want the message to be added to my observable collection. So inside of this if statement, I will add a new chat message to the observable collection that is going to contain a text of activity.text, and is incoming is going to be true in this case. So I will already be receiving all of those activities from the bot, and I will also be adding a new message to the messages observable collection when I send the message to the bot. Of course, in a real world scenario, you may want to have something else in chat message. The timestamp is going to be quite important, or would be quite important, maybe to change the order of the elements inside of the observable collection, so the previous messages or the earlier messages are actually before the newest. But for our example, this is going to be more than enough. We already have the observable collection, so all we have to do is start binding it to a list view that we could add right away here on the content page. But of course, the list view is not simply going to be displaying cells that we already know exist, or a simple view cell for each of the elements. We do want to create different styles depending on whether the message, or in this case, the chat message, is incoming or not. So in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how is it that we're going to be able to, from a list view, identify or use a different type of cell depending on the value of a certain property. In this case, the is incoming property from the chat message, which after all would be the type that binds over to each of the cells of the list view, because the list view is going to be binding to an observable collection of chat message. So in the next lecture, we're going to take a look at that now that we have this observable collection, so our chat is complete.